again, my little yarnivores and spiderettes. Fiber Spider back again with another tutorial just for you. Today we are going to be doing a little bit of knitting. Yes, this is a short row piece that can be, in my opinion, used either as a washcloth or as a really cool coaster. You decide. That is totally up to you. However, I love the design. It's very, very simple. It works up fast. It doesn't take a lot of yarn, and it is really quite simple. Now, the reason why it is done in the short rows is because we're creating sort of little pie wedges. It's a little bit difficult to see exactly, but for instance, there's one wedge between here and here, and then you got itty bitty little rows that form up the wedge. And depending upon the dimensions and so forth, the number of wedges may vary, but we will get to that. At any rate, for this particular piece, I used Red Heart Super Saver. It's a variegated, I think it's called Arctic, and I used size 10.5. Focus. Thank you. Size 10.5 needles, which are a 6.5 millimeter. You can, of course, use whatever works best for you, but I like to let you know what it is that I use in case if you want to duplicate the results. So this is just an acrylic yarn. If you're going to use this as sort of like a washcloth, face scrubby, what have you, I would suggest use, instead of an acrylic yarn, to use a cotton yarn so that it takes to the water a little bit better. For today's example, going to be using the same yarn in a different colorway. I can't remember what this one is called, but it is darn pretty. It's sort of like a peacock water lilies kind of watercolor thing going on. I like it. So we're going to be using that today. And without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so today I'm going to be using double pointed needles because you really don't need a lot of stitches cast on. So I'm going to do my slip knot as per usual. And you are going to want a fairly loose and or stretchy cast on. So this is certainly the one that I choose the most. It is the knitted cast on as opposed to the long tail. So going into that slip knot that we just created, and we are going to create a stitch. So this is the knitted cast on for those of you that are not familiar with it. So going in as if to knit, pull that loop up, going around, and there we go. That is a total of 2 stitches. Now, the number of stitches is actually totally up to you. It really depends on the weight of yarn, the size of the needles, and how big you want your piece to be. Now, for the piece that I showed you just before, I did a total of 10 cast-on stitches. You could do 8. You could do 16, you could do whatever you want, as long as it is divisible by 2. So totally up to you. You could want something a little bit more dainty, something a little bit bigger, but as far as how we create our wedges, you're going to want something that's divisible by 2. So I already got 5 here. I'm going to make 5 more. Also, if you would like a more in-depth tutorial on how to do the knitted cast on, I'm going to put a link to the video that I did on that in the description box down below. But I figured it's only 10 stitches. We can do this on camera. So I've got 2, 4, 6, 7, 3 more. Eight. 9 and 10. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Perfect. All right, so we have our cast on and we are ready to go. Okay, row 1. Row 1, quite simply, is going to be just knitting all of the stitches because we want to have this tail end at the outer edge. This is going to be the inner part of the circle. This is going to be the outer part of the circle. So we want to start from the outer edge of the circle. So just going to knit all of my stitches for the first row. And then we're going to get into the short rows. Now, there are varying opinions of how to do short rows. Personally, I like the wrap and turn method, because if you don't do the wrap and turns, you end up with holes in your project. And I like a bit more of a solid piece, unless if I'm making a deliberate lace pattern. So just going to work our way across. And also, as far as me using a variegated yarn, personally, I think it just creates a little bit more of a visual interest. You can use a solid color, no problem. That, and also it might be a little bit easier for you to see what it is that I'm doing. So that is our first row. Okay, so rows 2 and 3, they sort of come in sets, if you will. Row 2, we are going to do, and then row 3 immediately thereafter. Just be sure that you're working with your working yarn and not your short tail. So we're going to knit our way across 9 stitches. Now, what I said before, as far as however many stitches you want, we're only going to do short row wrap and turns for half of the stitches. The other half are going to be worked in normally. I'll show you what I mean when we get to that point. So because I have 10 stitches, we're only going to do wrap and turns for 5 of them. If you did a total of 8 stitches, you would only do a wrap and turn for 4 of them. If you did, I don't know, 12 stitches, you would do a wrap and turn for 6 of them. You get where I'm going? All right, so let's hop in and let's do our stitches until we reach the last stitch. So in our case, that's 9. So I got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and one more. 9. Okay, so now this last stitch, we want to do a wrap and turn. Very, very simple. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring the yarn from the back to the front, then slip the stitch from the left needle onto the right as if to purl, so through the front like that. Then wrap the yarn around the stitch, around the back, like so, and then slip that stitch back onto the left needle, again through the front, and slip it back onto the left needle, and then, last but not least, take the yarn that's in the back and bring it to the front. Sort of like a little dance. Okay, now that the yarn is in the front, we're going to turn our work for row 3. So, turning the work. There we go. And quite simply just knit the 9 stitches going back to the outer edge of our circle. It doesn't look like a circle yet, but the more wedges that you do, the more like a circle it will look. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that is the end of row 3. And let's do the next bunch of short rows together, shall we? Okay, so now we're going to be doing rows 4 and 5 together. So as you can see, looking at your work, this last stitch, well, he looks kind of all alone because we did that wrap and turn. That dark blue is our wrap there. And so for this row, instead of going to the last stitch, we're going to go to the last 2 stitches, and it's this stitch right here, the second one, that we're going to be doing the wrap and turn to. So let's get to it. So I'm going to knit 8 stitches this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so now we're going to wrap and turn this stitch. So again, bring the yarn to the front, slip the stitch from the left to the right, wrap the yarn to the back, and then slip that stitch from the right to the left, and then bring the yarn to the front. And because we're using a variegated yarn, it's really easy to see those stitches at the moment. That light blue, that's our wrap. Okay, so then turn the work. And you want to be careful when you're turning your work because you have these, 2 little stitches just hanging out there. You don't want your needle to fall out. So now for row 5, just going to knit our way back. It's that easy. And with this process, it's just a matter of basically decreasing the number of stitches until you do your wrap and turn, and then just work your way back. It's sort of almost like a typewriter. Okay, there we go. All right, and let's do another pair. So for row 6, going to go to the third from the end. So going to do a total of 7 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, yarn to the front, slip from the left to the right, yarn to the back, slip from the right to the left, yarn to the front, and turn. Okay, and then for row 7, work your way back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Ta-da! All right, so we have to do 2 more pairs of rows, and then we can do, the sort of picking up and working with these wraps. So we'll get there, one thing at a time. Okay, so we're going to do rows 8 and 9 now. So we did these 3 wraps, so this is going to be the next one. So now we need to do 6 stitches, then our wrap and turn. Also, if it helps, you can use stitch markers. Considering that this is so short, I didn't think it was necessary, but you can use them by all means. Whatever works best for you. That's what I always say. 1 and 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 1 more makes 6. Okay, so this next one, we need to do a wrap and turn. So again, bring the yarn from the back to the front, slip that stitch from the left to the right, bring the yarn to the back, slip that stitch from the right to the left, bring the yarn to the front, and we are ready to party. Let's turn that work around. Okay, and then for row 9, we're going to work our way back to the outer edge. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, just need to pull out a little bit more yarn here. Bear with me. Okay, so then for row 10, this time we're going to work 5 stitches. If you look closely, you can see the wraps. See, we did those 4, so it's this one right here that needs to be wrapped next, which means that we only need to knit 5 stitches, and then we have the wrap. And that's going to be it as far as the wrap and turns. So let's do it to it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yarn to the front, slip the stitch from the left to the right, yarn to the back, slip the stitch from the right to the left, yarn to the front, and then turn the work. Row 11. Just knit these 5 stitches back. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There you go. Now, at this point, you should definitely see that we have a bit of a wedge going on. And the shaping is created by not working all of the stitches. And it to me, I think it looks gorgeous as is. But what we're going to do following this is we're going to work our way across, and we're going to pick up the wraps and work them so that it doesn't create holes when we go to make our next wedge. Okay, I hope I'm not going too fast for you guys. All right, so we shall proceed. Yes. Okay, so rows 12 and 13 are going to be the rows where we finish the initial wedge. And this is what you're going to be repeating a number of times in order to create as many wedges as you need for your finished piece. So, going to knit the first 5 stitches as normal. Okay. And then we deal with the wraps. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, if you're working along with me, I strongly suggest stop, watch what I'm doing first, and then try to do it yourself, because it can be a little bit fiddly, especially if you haven't had much experience doing the picking up of the wraps. Trust me, I know whereof I speak. All right, so you can see the dark blue. That's our wrap. And so we're going to go underneath, and we're going to pick up that wrap. It's just that one loop. Okay, so we're going to pick up that wrap, and we're going to plop it onto the left needle there, like so. So now we have 2 loops sort of woven together. And because we don't want to increase the number of stitches, we're going to knit these 2 together through the back loop. So going in underneath there, and make sure that you get both loops on your right needle, and we're going to knit those 2 together. And I suggest go slow. It's not a race. And there you go. So that's the first one. Next one, it's this little green one right here. So going from underneath, picking up that wrap, putting it onto the needle, then going through both of those loops through the back, like so. Also, the stitching can be a little bit tight, so just be patient and persistent. There we go. Okay, the next one, the wrap is that blue, so we're going to pick that up from the bottom, pop that onto the needle, then going underneath through both of those loops, through the back loop, knit those 2 together. There we are. 2 more. Okay, so this one, it's the purple. So underneath, grab that loop, pop it onto the needle, go through both loops, through the back, knit them together, and off. One more. Okay, this one is the dark blue. Can be a little bit fiddly. Just take your time. There we go. I got it. Pop it onto the needle. There we go. And go underneath both loops, through the back, like so. Trying to give you the appropriate camera angles here. And then knit those 2 together. And haha, we did it. There we go. So now we have all of our stitches, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. And it is these stitches right here that we picked up our wraps and knitted them together, so there are no holes to deal with. Very nice. Okay, so now at this point, for row 13, quite simply, just knit our way back to the outer edge. You know, this is where we first started, so this is still the outer edge. So knit our way back. You have no idea how happy I am that that went without a hitch. Can be a little bit nerve-wracking, especially when filming, but yeah, it worked out very nicely. So let's knit our way back to the outer edge. And this actually could also be construed as row 1. You know, because we did our cast on and then we knitted to the outer edge of our circle, if you will. All right, so then from here, what you would do is proceed to make more wedges. This is one finished wedge, and for my piece, like I said, I did a total of 8 wedges, and that worked out pretty darn well for me. However, like I said, you may need to do more or less depending upon the weight of the yarn, the tension of your stitches, and the size needle that you're using. So, you know, keep that in mind, and that's really all there is to it as far as creating the wedges. Just repeat rows 2 through 13 as many times as you need. And before you get to that point, though, I'd like you to continue watching what it is that I'm going to explain, because it perhaps will make a little bit more sense. So let's get to it. Alrighty, so I decided that I would show you what it would look like if you went ahead and continued on by creating 8 wedges in total. So if you look closely, you can see right here, these stitches right here, that's where we did our picking up of the wraps. And then again, right here, so you can see that's 1 wedge, this is 2, and then we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 wedges in total. And then I did a stretchy bind off. Instead of continuing to knit back and so forth, after doing the row where you pick up the wraps and you knit your way back, row 13, I cast off on my way back. And this is my tail end right here. Now, when you're trying to determine how many wedges you actually need, let me reposition my camera here. There we go. So when you're figuring out how many wedges that you need, and, say for instance, this edge still had my needles on there, that's fine. So you would lay out your piece relatively flat, and you would figure, all right, this space right here, this opening, is it about a pie wedge worth of stitching that could fit in this space right here? So from here to here, could that fit in there? I think yes. So at that point, that's when you would want to bind off. If you did, say, another pie wedge, and then you did your seam and your cinching in the center, it might buckle a bit much. It might be a little too roughly and a little bit too wavy. Now, if that is your preference, go with it, by all means. Personally, I wanted something that would lay a little bit more flat. Now, here it is. Here's my piece. So this does lay nice and flat, and I used the 8 with this. So that is what I'm going to do for this piece right here. And if my calculations are correct, this should lay just as flat. So now I'm going to show you how you can do the seaming and the cinching and finish this up and make it look all nice and pretty. Okie dokie. So for this, it's really just a bit of very simple sewing. I just like to do the whip stitch, you know, very, very basic and simplistic. So with the bind off, you see how we have sort of the knitted V's right there. I like to go underneath both loops of the V and then go to the edge that I started and go underneath both loops of the cast on that I did. I don't know how well you can see that, but I'm trying. So I go underneath both and quite simply just go through, and for good measure I'm going to go through those 2 stitches again, just for good measure. And then we'll go underneath the next pair, here and here, and here and here. My tail is getting in the way. I'm sure many a cat has said that. Okay, so then the next pairing of stitches, and since there's only 10, this goes pretty darn quickly in the grand scheme. And you don't want to cinch your stitches too terribly tight because you don't want this to buckle. Okay, so I went through there. I got to go underneath here now. There we are. I think I'm doing this correctly, so you can see my stitches there. Then underneath here and here, here and here. There we go. And underneath these and these. These and these. Couple more. Okay. And then the last pairing. Kind of hard to see where it is that I'm going with this, but as long as it is securely stitched to itself, we're pretty much ready to rock. All right, so now we need to deal with the center. I'm going to cinch this up. And also because this is such a busy patterning, you really don't even see the stitching very much, you know, compared to the rest of the project as a whole. Okay, speaking of holes, we're now going to deal with this little guy. So to deal with this hole, very, very easy. You know, you could go from this side to this side and then this side to this side and do it that way. Personally, I find that it's even easier if what you do is going from here, just pick up a stitch along the edge here. You know what? I could do better than that. There we go. Just pick up a stitch. And then pick up another stitch. Perhaps this ridge right here. We'll go based on the ridges, shall we? Going underneath that one. And then the next ridge. And then the next ridge. Until we have come full circle. And then we can cinch and reinforce our stitches. So it's really, really, really quite easy. Yep. And we have made it to the other side. So let me just go through here. And then, sort of like a drawstring, cinch this up. And there you go. Ta-da! You know, it does want to pucker a little bit, but ultimately, yes, it will lay flat. Ta-da! All right, so now all I would need to do from this point is go around the stitches that we just did. Reinforcing our tail here so that it doesn't pop out later. And there you go. So at this point, I can quite safely trim this tail, and then this tail right here, I'm just going to sort of weave it in through some of these stitches, and you are good to go. Ta-da! Okay, because I can't leave well enough alone, yes, I'm going to show you this last tail on camera. So what I'm going to do is actually go from here to the opposing side to sort of make the join perhaps a little bit cleaner. And then from here, going to go and weave this tail underneath my stitches, the ones that I did the whip stitch, as well as some additional ones. Now, is this the end-all, be-all way of finishing in your tail? No, but this is how I do it. Generally, I like to have all of my ends nice and securely tucked away so that they aren't going to come out anytime soon. You know, regardless of whether or not there's a knot involved, no, I want those tails nice and snug as a bug in a rug. And there you go. So let me just trim this off right here. And then because I have all my ends on this side, this would be the front-facing side. So pretty. Absolutely love it. And was, just thinking actually, if you wanted to make this into an official mug rug, so to speak, you could attach to the outside edge perhaps some short fringe. I think that would look really adorable. Make it an official little rug. Have some fringe on the outside edge. Dress it up a little bit. Think it would look darling. So there you go. A short row washcloth / coaster scrubby. It's a circle, but you can use it for whatever you want to. There you go. All right, my dears. So that's going to conclude today's tutorial on this lovely little short row piece. I hope that you liked it, and if you did, please give a little thumbs up button down below. You know that I appreciate your appreciation. And in the comments section, let me know what you're going to do. What sort of yarn, what sort of colors. Honestly, I think a really, really cute idea would be to, perhaps make a small stack of these, have a mug, some tea bags, give it as a lovely gift. I think it would be adorable. So, that being all said, I hope that you guys have a great, great day. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, I want all of you to stay inspired, stay caffeinated, stay stitching, and please stay safe. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you in my next video. Bye for now, everybody, and have a great day.